we don't. And who's to say how long it will be before we see him again?
You know, the whole reason Mother proposed not having any presents this Christmas was because it's going to be a hard winter for everyone. And money ought not be spent for pleasure when our men are suffering so in the army. We can't do much, but we can make our little sacrifices and ought to do it gladly. I just wish I felt more glad about it.
That's Meg, the oldest and most practical of the March girls. We all looked up to Meg because she always seemed so responsible.
I wouldn't mind being so poor if I didn't have to go to that horrible school of those impudent girls who laugh at your dresses and label your father if he's a rich. I wish we were as wealthy as the Lawrences. I'd thumb my nose with those girls and teach them a thing or two about manners.
That is Amy, the youngest, and, as she likes to remind us, the prettiest.
Oh, dear. That key is sticking again.
Oh, don't stop, Beth.
We love it when you play.
I only wish I played better. Then this old piano wouldn't sound so bad. I know it sounds so funny to say, but in some ways, I'm glad we're not rich.
Whatever for?
What do you mean, Beth?
Well, weren't you saying just the other day, Meg, that the Watson children who you have to tend to are always fighting and fretting all the time in spite of their money?
Well, yes.
And that we were a great deal happier than they were? Well, I think we are. For though we do have to work and do without some things, we make fun for ourselves, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
And that's our Beth. So sweet, so kind and gentle, but also so shy that she was content never to leave her house and her piano if she didn't need to. We all adored Beth, but her frail health and timid manner were a concern for all the family.
Where are ye, thou sniveling swine of a villainous wretch?
But most troubling of the March sisters was, undoubtedly, myself.
Hello, dears.
Joe, you're home early.
Yes, I escaped. Aunt March dozed off in the middle of Chapter 7 of St. Augustine's Confessions, so I tiptoed out with her being none the wiser. Christopher Columbus, look at that tree.
Do you like it?
Joe, don't use such slang, please.
Like it? It's miraculous. Maybe we'll have a bit of Christmas around here after all.
Don't, Joe. It's so boyish.
That's why I do it. How's my Beth today?
Fine, Joe.
Joe, look at your sweater.
What's the matter with it?
Have you been sitting too near the fireplace again?
Oh, just singed it a little. It gave Aunt March quite a start, I must admit.
Oh, how I detest rude, unladylike girls.
And I hate affected little niminy-piminies.
Stop it, both of you. Really, you both are to blame. You are old enough to leave off boyish tricks and to behave better, Josephine. It didn't matter so much when you were a little girl, but you are a lady now.
I hate to think I've got to grow up and be Miss March and wear long gowns and look as prim as a china doll. It's bad enough being a girl anyway, when I like boys' games and work and manners. I can't get over my disappointment in not being a boy. And it's worse than ever now, for I'm dying to go and fight with Father, but I can only stay home and knit, like a poky old woman.
Poor Joe. It's too bad, but it can't be helped. You must try to be contented with making your name boyish and playing brother to us girls.
Or playing those silly men in those silly plays of yours.
As for you, Amy, you are altogether too particular and prim. Your airs are funny now, but you will grow up an affected little goose if you don't take care.
Honk, honk.
That's enough, Joe.
Of course, dearest. Peace on Christmas Eve, I say. Speaking of those silly little plays, Amy, we'd better rehearse. We've got to be ready for tomorrow night. Come and try the fainting scene, for you are stiff as a poker in that.
I can't help it. I've never seen anyone faint before, and I don't choose to make myself all black and blue tumbling flat as you do.
Give it a try. You're the only one who can play Zaza. You're the only one small enough to be carried off shrieking by Don Pedro. Beth, will you give us some music?
Yes, Joe.
Meg, have you got your cue?
I think so.
Good. We'll start with Don Pedro's entrance. There you are. So the hour of my revenge approaches. Listen carefully, my sweet, and you will hear my hounds as they track down your beloved Rodrigo. It cannot be so, Rodrigo. Save me, save me. No. Do it this way. Clasp your hands so, and stagger across the room, crying frantically, "It cannot be so! Rodrigo, save me, save me!"
dear.
Ow! Ow!
It cannot be so, Rodrigo! Save me! Save me! No. Do your best when the time comes, and if the audience laughs, don't blame me.
I don't see how you can write and act in such splendid things, Joe. You're a regular Shakespeare.
Not quite. But I do think the witch's curse and operatic tragedy is a rather nice thing. Rather like to try Macbeth, if only we had a trapdoor for Banquo. Is this a dagger I see before me?
No, it's that horrid rug Aunt March gave us 2 Christmases ago.
Glad to find my girls so merry.
Marmee!
We had always called our mother Marmee as far back as I could remember. She was the most unselfish woman I have ever known. Everyone in town admired her, and we all thought she was the most splendid mother in the world.
Well, my dears, how have you got on today? How was your cold, Beth? Meg, you look so tired. Were those Watson children in bad sorts today? Was school all right, Amy? Joe, how did you find Aunt March today?
She found her well enough, but left her sleeping.
I've got a treat for you.
A letter! 3 cheers for Father!
A nice long one. He is well and speaks optimistically of the winter ahead. He sends all sorts of loving wishes for Christmas and a special message to you girls. I'll read that part to you. Here it is. Give them all my dear love.
My dear love and a kiss. Tell them I think of them, pray for them, and find my best comfort in their affection at all times. A year seems very long to wait before I see them, but remind them that while we wait, we may all work so that these hard days need not be wasted. I know they'll remember all that I said to them, that they'll be loving children to you, do their duties faithfully, and conquer themselves so beautifully that when I return, I may be fonder
and prouder than ever of my little women.
Meg is right. I am a selfish little goose.
I'll try not to be so rough and wild, but do my duty here instead of wishing to be someplace else.
That's Hannah, our housekeeper, our cook, our rock of Gibraltar. She had been with us since Meg was a baby.
Good evening, Mrs. March.
Hannah, Merry Christmas.
I'd best be telling you that a carriage has just pulled up to the walk, and I don't have to make you guess who it might be.
Aunt March.
Uh-oh.
Whatever can she want?
Aunt March never goes out.
Especially in winter.
Joe, do you know anything about this?
Well,
Josephine!
yes, Aunt March.
It seems you neglected to relay your Christmas wishes to your aunt before leaving today.
I'm sorry, Aunt March. Merry Christmas, Auntie.
Girls, please offer your best wishes as well.
Aunt March was my father's aunt and was extremely rich and extremely unpleasant. She was widowed and childless and rarely left her big house on the hill because of her many ailments. When Father left for the war, Aunt March did hire me as a companion, and it was my job to read to her and be at her beck and call.
Josephine left today before I had the chance to give her these. One for each of the girls, $1 each.
Thank you, Aunt March.
You can thank me by spending it wisely and not in the foolish manner that young girls are accustomed to these days.
Yes, Aunt March.
Thank you, Aunt March. Won't you stay for some tea?
Nothing of the kind. I must get back home before I catch my death from the cold. It was not a trip I anticipated taking.
I understand. You will be glad to hear, Aunt March, that I received a letter today from Mr. March. He is quite well and thinks they shall get through the winter better than he feared.
Foolish nephew, to run off and join the army at his age? Where does he get off doing such a thing? And to leave a family behind for others to take care of, no less.
We take care of ourselves.
Joe! Thank you for coming, Aunt March, and please accept my warmest Christmas wishes.
Yes, good day to you all.
Christopher Columbus.
A whole $1?
We shall have Christmas after all.
Here you are, girls.
Do you believe what she said about Father?
I shall get a nice box of Faber's drawing pencils. I really need them.
I'm going to buy that blue and yellow bonnet. You know, Joe, the one we saw at Mason's.
Nothing like that for me. I've had my eye on those volumes of Undine and Sintram for the longest time, and now I can get them.
What about you, Beth? What will you do with your $1?
Do you think it would be all right if I bought some new sheet music? They have so many wonderful songs at Mason's.
Maybe I should get some new hair ribbon instead. What do you think, Meg?
Why not buy only a few pencils? Then you might have enough for some ribbon as well.
Mrs. March, this has just come. That little German boy brought it round to the back door. I told him to wait.
Oh dear. It's the Hummels. I fear Mrs. Hummel's baby is coming soon. Hannah, please fetch my coat.
But you haven't had your tea.
Hurry, there's no time to lose.
But who are the Hummels?
That German family that lives by the warehouses.
Mr. Hummel was killed in Virginia, and there's no one to care for Mrs. Hummel and her 4 children. Soon it will be 5 children. Thank you, Hannah. Girls, you are not to wait up for me. Joe, I leave you in charge of the household. Be sure to take your medicine back. Good night, my dears.
Good night, Marmee.
That poor, poor woman.
I don't see why these Hummels have to ruin our Christmas Eve.
The Hummels have bigger problems than deciding to whether to buy pencils or hair ribbons.
Dear, dear Marmee.
Somehow, wishing for some new sheet music seems so selfish of me. The old music is perfectly fine.
Look, Marmie's slippers. See how worn they are?
I know. I shall buy her a new pair with my dollar. What do I need with some silly old books?
No, I'll buy Marmie the slippers. I'm the oldest.
She put me in charge of the household. I'll buy them.
I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's each get her something for Christmas and not worry about ourselves.
What?
That's so like you, dear, but what will we get?
If you buy Marmie the slippers, Joe, then I shall get her a nice pair of gloves.
Some handkerchiefs, all hemmed. She'd like that.
I'll get her a little bottle of cologne. She likes cologne, and it won't cost much, so I'll have some left for my pencils.
Let's hurry before Mr. Mason closes up shop for Christmas Eve.
Come along, girls. Beth, be sure you wear your heavy scarf.
Christopher Columbus, this is going to be a capital Christmas after all.
Maybe if I buy a very little bottle of cologne, I'll have enough for 1 hair ribbon and 5 pencils, or 2 hair ribbons and 3 pencils.
Marmee didn't return that night. I lay awake, thinking what a strange Christmas it was to be, with no stockings filled with presents, no fancy Christmas dinner, no father, and maybe even no Marmee. Then I thought of Father far away and how odd his Christmas would be. Then I thought of Marmee with the Hummels, and as I finally got sleepy, I felt as though I was starting to see things as an adult does. The thought of it made me shiver, and I pulled the quill over my head and went to sleep.
Merry Christmas! Hannah, where's Marmie?
Not still with that German family.
I suppose so. But I've gone and prepared breakfast all the same. Someone ought to remember it's Christmas around here.
Hannah, what's that I smell?
Not popovers.
And why not? It is a holiday.
Oh, Hannah.
And sausages and those little wheat cakes made with apples from the cellar.
Christopher Columbus.
Oh, how wonderful.
Popovers. I can't believe it.
Hannah, how did you manage?
Oh, never you mind. Everything's about ready, so come on in. I'll not have it all go cold on us.
3 cheers for Hannah.
Stop your nonsense.
Merry Christmas, girls!
Merry Christmas.
Look what we got you.
Presents? But how?
With love from us, and though she doesn't know it, compliments of Aunt March.
Oh, dears, your dollars.
Open mine first.
You greedy little thing. Let Marmie decide which she'll open first.
I'll decide. We'll have breakfast first and then presents.
No, Marmee,
no,
open them
no,
now.
please.
Hannah is right. I shall open them in good time.
I guess I can wait if you can. Come on, girls.
What is it, Marmee?
Are you all right?
Exhausted, that's what she is.
Oh, Marmee, come sit down right here.
Oh, I am a bit tired, but there's something I'd like to say before we sit down to eat.
Yes, Marmie.
Mrs. Hummel had her baby early this morning, and thank God the little thing seems healthy enough, but the family. 6 of them have no fire and are huddled together in one bed to keep from freezing, and there is nothing to eat, and they struggle so, and my girls, I'd like to bring them some firewood before I do anything else this Christmas.
Of course, Marmie, and we will
And
help.
there's something I need to ask all of you. Would you be willing to give the Hummels your Christmas breakfast as a present? I know Hannah has prepared something special, but
Well, a good thing you came home before we ate it all by our greedy selves.
Yes, Marmee, let's do it. Of course we will.
Even the popovers?
Certainly the popovers.
Let's hurry. Won't the Hummels be surprised?
I thought you'd do it. Oh, thank you, girls.
I'll put some firewood in the cart.
And I'll push the cart.
Do we have any fresh cream, Hannah?
Of course we do.
We can warm the wheat cakes over the fire we make for them.
Can I carry the popovers?
Better let Beth take them, just to be safe.
What a funny foursome of angels we were at the Hummels, all scurrying about their shabby one-room hovel like schoolgirls on a class outing. Beth tended to the baby, Hannah got a good roaring fire going, and the rest of us served food to the family, whose grateful expressions brought tears to our eyes, even as we couldn't help giggling with pleasure. Then it was off to church for Christmas services, and home for a simple breakfast of sweetbread and milk and crackers. All in all, a Christmas was so little, and yet I cannot recall one richer in spirit. That evening was the great performance of The Witch's Curse, an operatic tragedy. No gentlemen were admitted, but the all-woman audience was indiscriminately enthusiastic, even the one or two members who'd actually seen a real play before.
It must be the curse of the old witch that has delayed my beloved Rodrigo, for he promised to come ere the sun touched the nether edges of the great oaks that surround this castle.
I hear horses in the courtyard, my lady. Perhaps it is he.
Oh, tarry not, and go find out, my faithful nurse, for my heart will be but forever frozen in grief, till I know if 'tis he.
Certainly, my lady.
Oh, hither, hither from my home, to this dreary castle have I come. Only Rodrigo's glove can makest me glad, and save me from this villainous cad.
Zaza, I have come!
Alas, it is Don Pedro, my heart's scourge and my love's enemy.
There you are. So the hour for my revenge approaches. Listen carefully, my sweet, and you will hear my hounds as they track down your beloved Rodrigo.
It cannot be so, Rodrigo! Save me! Save me!
The minion has fainted. But my scheme will secure all for me. Zaza will be mine!
Don Pedro, your hour of reckoning has arrived. Rodrigo is coming.
Insolent one. My hounds will reduce him to nothing but...
That noise you just heard was your hounds retreating, and Rodrigo has slain your soldiers in the courtyard.
Accursed irony. Then I shall have to destroy the upstart myself!
Arise, my lady. Rescue is at hand.
Hello, Don Pedro. Where are ye, thou sniveling swine of a villainous wretch? Draw thy weapon, insidious one.
Rodrigo!
Let us avert our eyes, my lady, ere our hearts will break.
Justice, righteousness, and the honor of my beauteous Zaza.
My ever-true Rodrigo!
It is I.
You have not forgotten your sons. Act as if it were all right. My dress!
Don't worry, everyone. There's just a little bit more. You'll see. Go on.
I can't.
My lady, Rodrigo, look! The setting sun is touching the nether edges of the great oaks.
I broke the strap on my shoe.
Did I not promise it so?
Long live Prince Rodrigo!
This sunset brings to sudden end the aged curse the old witch did send. And now we close this valiant tale with heartfelt cheer to wish all thee well.
Oh, my clever girls.
I never thought I could do it. Did you see me shaking?
I do wish you would write less violent plays, Joe. Look at my shoe.
I think it is Joe's finest play yet.
Oh, I just don't know. Did you like it, Marmee? I mean, really like it?
I thought it was thrilling. I am so proud of all of you. But listen, I have a surprise for you all.
What is it, Marmee?
A surprise?
Compliments of Mr. Lawrence next door.
Ice cream and fruitcake.
And chocolates.
And such lovely flowers in winter.
Oh, Marmee!
Everyone join us, and Merry Christmas to you all.
Oh, Mr. Lawrence sent this? What in the world put such a thing into his head?
Hannah told one of his servants about your breakfast party for the Hummels this morning. He is an odd old gentleman, but hearing of it pleased him so. He sent a note to me this afternoon asking if he might send a few trifles in honor of the day.
A few trifles? Christopher Columbus.
The Lawrence mansion was just a stone throw away from our house. In fact, it seemed as though we lived in the shadow of that great rambling house. Old Mr. Lawrence was a private sort of person, a stern-looking old gentleman who only went out under the cover of his big black carriage. We girls had paid little attention to the inhabitants of that dark house and their goings-on until that December. Mr. Lawrence's grandson Theodore came to live there just after Thanksgiving, but he seemed as secretive and reclusive as his grandfather. I had a strong suspicion it was the grandson who was responsible for our Christmas surprise. I was determined to find out, and waited all morning the next day until I saw the old man's carriage drive away.
I'm sorry, but you've just missed my grandfather. He's gone into town.
Has he? That is disappointing. So sorry to disturb you then. You must excuse
No,
me.
please, you mustn't go.
I only came to thank Mr. Lawrence for...
Come in. We never get visitors, you see, and you're Josephine, aren't you?
Yes. I mean, no. I'm only Joe. You see, Mr. Lawrence, I only came to thank...
I'm not Mr. Lawrence. I'm only Lori.
Lori Lawrence? What an odd name.
My first name is Theodore, but I don't like that much because the fellows at school used to call me Dora for short, so I made them say Lori instead.
I hate my name, too. Josephine. So sentimental. I wish everyone would just say Joe instead. How did you get the boys to stop calling you Dora?
I thrashed them.
Oh. Well, I can't very well thrash Aunt March, so I suppose I shall have to bear it. This room is capital. Just capital. What I could do with a room like this.
You mean for one of your plays?
How do you know about that?
Oh, well, you see I'm very much alone here. Grandfather likes his books and his alone time, and I'm very, very much alone, and sometimes you forget to put the curtain down in the sitting room, and I've seen you rehearse.
You have?
How I wish I could have seen the performance last night, but there were some ladies blocking the view. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
You see, sometimes when the lamps are lit, it's like looking at a picture to see the fire, and you all gather around your mother, and I can't help but watching it. I haven't a mother, you know.
And that's why you've come to live with your grandfather?
Grandfather took me out of school last fall to be tutored here privately. He doesn't hold much in schools and such.
Must be dull as blazes all alone in a big old house like this. Excuse my slang.
That's quite all right.
Christopher Columbus. If I'd known you were interested, I'd have let you play Rodrigo. You would have been smashing.
I'd have done my best. I played Macduff in school once.
You did? Did they have a trapdoor?
Then you'll be coward and live to show and gaze all the time.
Yet I will try the last. Before my body I throw my warlike shield. Lay on, Macduff!
Would this do for you, Rodrigo?
Capital. I tell you, Mr. Lawrence.
Ah.
Lori. We'll never draw those curtains again, and I give you leave to look as much as you like. Better yet, come over and join us. We're neighbors, aren't we? Not strangers.
Yes, but
Your grandfather. He does seem a frightful little bird, but I'm sure I shouldn't be afraid of him. His mouth is grim, true, but he has kind eyes. He isn't as handsome as my grandfather was, but I think I like him all the same.
thank you, ma'am. Grandfather, you're back already.
So, you're not afraid of me, hey?
Not much, sir.
And you don't think me as handsome as your grandfather?
Not quite, sir.
And my mouth is grim.
Well,
But you like me in spite of it?
Yes, I do. Sir.
You've got your grandfather's spirit, even if I haven't his face. He was a fine man, my dear, and what's better, he was a brave and honest one, and I was proud to be his friend.
Thank you, sir.
But what have you been doing with this boy of mine, hey?
Only trying to be neighborly, sir.
Of course, something I am somewhat lacking in, you might say.
No. In fact, I came to thank you for the present you sent us yesterday.
Tut-tut. That was very much the boy's doing. John, this is Mr. Brooke, my grandson's tutor. John, has your pupil been attentive today?
Well, Mr. Lawrence, this being the holiday season, any student tends to get a bit...
Exactly. Do you think your pupil would suffer much of a disciplinary setback if we arranged some sort of social gathering in this house? Let us say New Year's Eve.
Not at all, sir.
Then we must entertain such a notion. What do you say to a dance? Young people still enjoy dances, I suppose.
Oh, thank you, Grandfather.
Do you really mean it, sir?
I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. You'd best help Theodore with the preparations, John. No time to lose. Give my best to your mother, Miss March. A frightful old bird. I declare.
Miss March, I do think I believe in miracles.
There hadn't been many dances since the war started, and even fewer that the March girls were invited to, but we meant to have a glorious time at this one. Amy and Beth were considered too young for dancing, but were invited to the supper. As for Meg and I, we were struck with delightful panic.
Oh, this hairband looks so sad. How I need a long, beautiful yellow one.
It looks fine, dear.
Do I really have to go, Marmee? I'd much rather stay at home with you.
Mr. Lawrence has invited you, Beth, and it would be impolite not to accompany the other girls.
I wouldn't miss it for the world.
And they will have music there, Beth. I heard Clara say that they have hired 16 musicians.
There you go, Miss Meg. I got that sash looking as happy as I could.
Thank you, Hannah.
Where's Joe?
Joe!
16 musicians. Is that true, Meg?
Have you got your gloves, girls?
Joe's getting mine. Joe!
I heard that Lorraine Gardner's wearing that all-silk dress she wore to the harvest ball. How ostentatious of her.
Oh, look at the time, my dears. It would be rude to arrive too late. Joe!
I'd look better than Lorraine in that silk dress. It's just my color.
I say we call off the whole thing. Look at my gloves. Those lemonade stains didn't come out. Here are yours, Meg. They look fine.
But you can't go without gloves, Joe. Who ever heard of dancing without gloves?
Dancing? Not very likely with this.
Oh, dear. Does the patch show?
Something awful.
It's my own fault. The burn from the fireplace ought to teach me not to get too near.
Tonight, you must sit as much as you can and keep your back out of sight at all times.
That'll be a challenge. Maybe I can stay out on the porch all night so I have an excuse to keep my coat on.
It's hardly noticeable, Joe. Get your coats on, girls.
But what are we to do about Joe's gloves, Marmee?
I'll go without. I don't care what people say.
Meg, you give Joe one of your good ones. Then each of you hold one of the soiled ones folded up in the other hand.
As long as she doesn't go and stain my good one. And please, Joe, behave nicely. You won't stare or shout out or say, "Christopher Columbus," will you?
Don't worry about me. I'll be as prim as I can and not get into any scrapes if I can help it.
Be sure to give my best regards to Mr. Lawrence.
We will, Marmee.
Mr. Lawrence. Oh, but we've heard so much about you. May I present my daughter, Clara?
Pleased to meet you.
We were so hoping to sit near you at supper. As I was saying to Clara, I said how much the young Mr. Lawrence looks like his father. It's quite remarkable.
You knew my father, Mrs. Moffat?
Well, no, but one hears so much about him. The late Mr. Lawrence was very highly esteemed here in Concord.
I see.
I'm sure I speak for many others when I say how delightful it is to have you here.
Thank you.
I was saying just that to Clara at supper. Isn't it delightful, Clara, to have Mr. Lawrence?
Excuse me, but I believe they have started dancing. And I'm sure Claire's dance card is quite full,
Actually, she does have a dance or two still open, Mr. Lawrence, if you would care to.
Mother.
Oh, dear, I believe I promised this first dance to someone else, and here I stand babbling away. John, perhaps.
May I have the honor of this dance?
Why, yes, Mr. Brooke.
Have a pleasant evening.
May I?
Mr. Brooke, by any chance are you a member of the family?
There you are.
Lori,
Where have you been hiding? I've been looking for you ever since supper.
hiding? Why would I be hiding? Isn't the orchestra just splendid? Your grandfather knows how to do a thing right, I must say.
There'd be no dance at all tonight if it weren't for you.
Nonsense.
The only thing I regret is that he saw fit to invite so many people that I haven't been able to talk to you all evening.
You can talk to me any old time, but this music...
Then let's not waste it. Where's your dance card?
Well, I lost it.
Then I claim this dance for myself.
No! I mean, I told Meg I wouldn't, because...
Because...
I promise you won't tell.
Never.
I have have a bad habit of sitting too close to the fireplace, and sometimes I burn my frocks. I scorched this one, and though it's nicely mended, the patch shows something awful. So Meg told me to keep still so no one would see it.
What an odd girl you are.
It is funny. You may laugh.
Never mind that. We must do something about this. You can't go to a dance and not dance at all. Especially since I've been looking so forward to it.
I'm sorry, Lori. It's all my fault.
I'll tell you how we can manage. This hall goes behind the musicians. We can dance up there and no one will see us.
A capital idea.
Will you do me the honor, Miss March?
Certainly, Mr. Lawrence.
Let's go then.
Are you all right, Miss March?
Oh, ever so fine. I'm having a marvelous time, but it's just that I would like a breath of air. It's cooler out here. I don't mean to keep you, Mr. Brooke. Please go back in.
I'd much rather stay out here with you, if you don't mind.
I'd hate for you to miss any of the dancing.
I fear I shall get more than my fair share of the dancing tonight.
There certainly does seem to be a shortage of young men in there. With the war on, it is to be expected, I suppose.
I understand we have similar pursuits, Miss March.
In what way do you mean?
Lori tells me you work as a governess for the Watson family.
That is true, although governess is probably a much grander word than I would use. I'm not a true teacher as you are.
Tutors, I am afraid, are not quite as respected as teachers, but I do like it.
I only wish I liked teaching more, but I really never got the education one ought to have, not like you.
If you had pupils such as Lori, you'd like it more. I shall be sorry to lose him next year when he starts college.
Oh, and what will become of you?
As soon as he is off, I shall turn soldier. I am needed.
That is very good to hear. I should think that every young man would like to go, though it is hard for mothers and sisters who stay at home.
I have neither, and very few friends to care whether I live or die.
Oh, but that cannot be true.
No.
Well, surely Lori and Mr. Lawrence would care a great deal, and others as well, such as my sisters and I.
Thank you. That is very pleasant to hear.
Perhaps I've had enough fresh air.
Certainly. And may I be allowed to finish my dance with you?
Yes, you may, Mr. Brooke.
Wonderful.
Amy, come back. Someone might see us.
Would it be so awful? I want to see the dancing.
We promised Marmee we'd wait with the parents until Meg and Joe say they're ready to leave.
Who wants to go to dance and not see any dancing? Oh, look, there's Meg. And just look at that Lorraine Gardiner.
Do you see the grand piano at all?
I should say so. Come and look. It's as big as our dining room.
Oh, the music is so lovely.
I can't wait until I'm old enough to go dancing.
Someone's coming.
Let's sit up here on the steps. No one will see.
Do you see Joe anywhere?
No. I just hope she doesn't do something horrid. There's Clara. I don't think I like her hair like that.
And who's that dancing with Meg?
I can't tell.
Who's there? Who's that on the... Ah, the younger March girls. And which one might you be?
Amy, sir.
Welcome, Amy, and...
She's shy, sir.
She is she? That's no way to be.
She'd sooner die than talk to strangers.
Is that true? But I thought we were neighbors.
That's right, Beth. Mr. Lawrence is...
Beth, sir.
Beth, is it? You're the musical one, I understand.
Yes, sir.
Do you see that great hunk of a piano in there?
Oh, yes.
A waste. That piano suffers from want of use. Perhaps you'd be kind enough as to come and play it sometime?
I couldn't.
Why not? Oh, you're shy. I forgot. Well, you needn't see or speak to anyone. Just come on in when it pleases you. I'm usually shut up in my study at the other end of the house, and Theodore and his tutor work upstairs. And even the servants go in there after 9 each morning. What do you say?
She'll do it, Mr. Lawrence. I can convince her.
If you're sure I wouldn't be disturbing anyone, then I would dearly love to.
Thank you. I shall be obliged to you. A pleasant evening, ladies.
Oh, Beth, that was wonderful. You spoke to Mr. Lawrence like, I don't know what.
Can we go back now, Amy?
Not just yet. I want to see who Clara dances with.
But it is pretty obvious, isn't it?
What is, Mother? I can never understand you.
The Lawrence boy, the first time he makes any appearance in society, and those March girls descend on the place.
I'm pretty sure they were invited, Mother.
That has nothing to do with it. I'll bet you anything that Daisy March has got that Lawrence boy pegged out for one of her elder daughters.
Meg? Joe?
And wouldn't that be a fine feather in her cap, capturing a wealthy Lawrence for one of her girls? Especially with no money of their own and no prospects likely to turn up.
I don't think Joe March would ever marry any boy.
Don't talk nonsense, Clara. You take my word for it. The oh-so-charitable Mrs. March has got a plan for those girls.
Quiet, Baba. Beth, did you hear that? Oh, Beth, you're crying. That's all right, my dearest. You know none of it is true.
Can we please go home now, Amy?
Of course, Beth. Right away.
There you two are. We looked for you in the dining room and... What's the matter, Beth?
We have to leave Joe right now.
Of course. Lori, will you get Meg?
Certainly.
What's happened, Amy?
We can't tell you not here. Let's go get our coats.
What is it, Joe? Has something happened to Beth?
Something has upset Beth terribly. We must get home. Oh, Lori, will you forgive us if we leave right away?
Please let me see you home then.
We'll be fine. Give our goodbyes to your grandfather.
Good evening, Mr. Brooke.
Please, wait one moment, Miss March. Is it possible that we may meet again?
No, I must get home now. I mean, yes. Yes, Mr. Brooke. Thank you, and good night.
Miss March!
Once we got home and were able to calm Beth down, Amy told us what they'd overheard Mrs. Moffat say. We all fussed and cried and complained and eventually got the younger girls to bed. Then Meg and I went down and told Marmee the whole story.
I'm not surprised that it disturbed Beth so, for she is unused to people. But surely the rest of you could not take offense at such talk.
Take offense? I do indeed. If I'd have been there instead of Beth,
Where do people say such things, Marmee?
For any number of reasons you can never fully know. Learn to recognize the value of praise that comes from other people, and don't busy yourself trying to understand their scorn.
But, Mother, do you have plans for us, as Mrs. Moffat said?
Yes, my dear, I have a great many. All mothers do, but mine differ somewhat from Mrs. Moffat's, I suspect. I want my girls to be beautiful, accomplished, and good. To be admired and loved, respected. To have happy youths. To be well and wisely married, and to live useful, pleasant lives with as little care and sorrow to try them as God sees fit to send. My dears, I am ambitious for you, but not to have you make a dash in the world, to marry rich men merely because they are rich, or to have splendid houses which are not homes because love is wanting. I'd rather see you poor men's wives, if you were happy, beloved, and contented, rather than queens on thrones without self-respect or peace.
I sometimes wonder if poor girls stand a chance, unless they're forward or bold.
Then we'll all be old maids.
Joe.
Better to be happy old maids than unhappily married or unmaidenly girls running about to find husbands. Don't be troubled, Meg. Poverty seldom daunts a sincere lover.
We talked late into the night, not so much as a mother instructing her daughters, but as three women talking and discussing freely and openly. It was the kind of conversation that makes it difficult to go back to childish ways. With the holidays concluded and the long New England winter ahead of us, life settled back into its usual routine for the March family. Each of us four girls returned to our daily burdens, as Marmee called them. Amy was still in school, and that seemed to cause her endless irritation.
What do you want?
What happened?
Did Mr. Davies strike you with the stick?
Molly says he hits in the back of the hand so a girl can hardly tie her own hair ribbon.
Is that why he kept you after dismissal, Amy?
He sure was angry when he found that funny picture you drew of him.
Did he hit you, Amy?
Did he?
Certainly not. We just talked.
Talked?
I thought we heard you cry out. I confess I did raise my voice higher than was necessary.
What did you tell Mr. Davies?
I told him that I was not accustomed to being spoken to in front of others that way, and that if my mother knew, she'd refuse to let me return to his silly old school.
And what did he say?
What could he say? He sort of apologized. Then I said it was bad enough I had to go to school with a bunch of ill-mannered, snobby girls with a sense of peahens. And my hands are just fine, thank you.
Meg's daily burden also involved little girls. As governess for the Watson children, she found that being the teacher was an even less enviable position.
Sarah, please pay attention.
Katie started it. Did not.
Please do not quarrel. We were trying to read the new words on page 16.
I can't focus with Sarah poking at me all the time. I did not. And my book got all wet when she spilled her tea this afternoon. I did not.
Page 16, please. Katie, you will start.
That's the same dress you've worn twice this week. Why don't you get a different one? A prettier one?
We are not discussing dresses.
It's because she's poor, stupid. Everyone knows that. I'm not stupid.
That is enough, Sarah. Please start reading.
I heard Mama telling Martha that they're as poor as church mice. All governesses are. I'm not stupid.
Enough. Katie, you will start.
My burden, of course, was Aunt March. Being her paid companion had many drawbacks. The old woman truly loved being ill and miserable and enjoyed spreading her misery as widely as she could.
Josephine!
But there was one consolation. Her house had the most marvelous library. Uncle March had been quite the reader and had a fascinating collection of books. Having already decided that I was to be a world-famous author, I would hide away in that library and read every time Aunt March drifted off to sleep or gossiped with the callers.
Josephine!
Yes, Aunt March.
Where have you been? As if I didn't know. I pay you to keep me company, not my late husband's old books. What have you there?
The Bride of Lammermoor by Sir Walter Scott. It's thrilling, Auntie.
Rather more thrilling than is appropriate for a young lady, I imagine. We will continue with Mr. Belsham's essays. Let us reread the one on perseverance, as I seem to have napped during the later sections.
Yes, Aunt March.
Walter Scott? The Bride of Lammermoor? What was my late husband thinking of?
As for Beth, dear, sweet, and fragile Beth, neither school nor outside work quite suited her. Her shyness and fear of people made any attempts to introduce her to the outside world a painful failure. It took some persuasion on all of our parts, but eventually she did find the courage to go over to Mr. Lawrence's house and play his grand piano. How her face shone when she'd return, telling us of all of the magical sounds she never imagined she could create. I had my own private world, a room in the attic where I would retreat to do my writing when genius was burning inside of me.
Beth, I'm so sorry to disturb you when you're writing. I know how difficult it must be.
Difficult? This wretched story just refuses to cooperate. I've got the princess in the tower, and Ferdinand in the dungeon, and... Ugh, Christopher Columbus, my brain aches so.
I shouldn't bother you then.
No. Seems I've hardly seen you at all these past few days.
I've been busy, making these.
What is it?
Slippers, for old Mr. Lawrence. He has been so kind to let me come over and play his piano, and I must thank him somehow, and I don't know any other way. So I've needle-pointed him this pair of slippers. Do you think it will be all right?
A capital idea. He's sure to love them. And your needlepoint is top-notch.
The only thing is, how do I give them to him?
Shouldn't be too difficult. The next time you're over there, just tell him.
Oh, no, I couldn't. I mean, it would be so forward.
How's this? You write a note to go with them, and I'll give the package to Laurie, and he can set it on his grandfather's desk while he's out, and there you are.
Oh, thank you, Joe. That's what we'll do.
Lovely wrapping, Beth. Isn't that one of Amy's hair ribbons you've got there?
Oh, it's an old one that she was going to throw out, I think.
Spring came, and with it came my first story that I felt confident enough about to try and sell. I'd wrapped up the manuscript, and as inconspicuously as I could, I stole away to Main Street where the newspaper's editorial office was situated over a dentist parlor. I then presented my magnum opus to a balding editor who seemed to care less.
caught you.
Lori!
I've been following you, Miss March, ever since you've left your house.
No, you haven't.
Yes, I have. And for good reason. You never come out of that old attic of yours. I haven't seen you in days. And the weather has been capital, as you'd put it.
I've been busy.
And so when I saw you sneak off, I had to follow.
I did not sneak off.
And I see you've come to this place. What a disappointment. I thought Joe March had a mysterious dark secret.
No. Stop being such a child. You're older than I am.
By 2.5 months. So, did you have a bad time in there?
Not very.
You got through it quickly.
Yes, thank goodness.
Why did you go alone?
Didn't want anyone to know.
What an odd girl you are. How many did you want to come out?
Only one. How many did you think?
What's so funny?
You. Where do you think I've been, Lori?
Well, the dentist, of course. I saw you...
I guess I still have a secret then.
Christopher Columbus, you are a strange girl. I don't think I'll walk you home after all.
I never said you could.
Very well. I have a secret of my own, you know. And if I tell you mine, you must tell me yours.
Is your secret a nice one?
Oh, isn't it? All about the people you know and such fun. You ought to hear it. I've been aching to tell you for days. Come, you begin.
You won't say anything to anyone?
Not a word.
And you won't tease me in private?
I never tease.
Yes, you do. But no matter. I've just left a story with the editor in the newspaper office up there. He said he'd give me an answer next week.
Hurrah for Miss March, the celebrated American author.
Hush! Won't come to anything, I dare say. I couldn't rest till I had tried. I didn't say anything to the others because I didn't want anyone else to be disappointed.
Oh, Joe, it won't fail. Why you're writing is a work of Shakespeare compared to half the rubbish printed every day.
Thank you, Macduff. Now, what's your secret?
Well...
Play fair, Lori, or I'll never believe you again.
Do you remember a while back when you told me that Meg was angry at you because you lost one of her good gloves?
Yes.
I know where it is.
Tell then.
John Brooke has it.
He has? How do you know?
I saw it. It fell out of his pocket and onto his desk. I don't think he saw me see it, though.
But why?
Don't you see? He must have gotten it at the New Year's Eve dance.
And he's kept it all this time?
Keeps it on him always. Isn't it romantic?
No, it's horrid.
I thought you'd like it.
It's ridiculous. What will Meg say when I tell her?
You are not to tell anyone.
I didn't promise.
That was understood, but I trusted you.
Well, I won't for the present, but I am disgusted and wish you hadn't said anything.
I thought you'd be pleased.
At the idea of anybody coming to take Meg away? No, thank you.
You'll think differently when someone comes to take you away.
I'd like to see somebody try.
So should I.
I don't think secrets agree with me. I feel all rumpled in my mind since you told me that.
Let me walk you home, then.
I don't want to walk. I feel like running. Race you home!
Wait, Joe!
Joe!
Good afternoon, Miss March.
Is it?
How could you go running like that? At your age? What will people say? When will you stop such romping ways?
Never, till I'm stiff and old and have to use a crutch.
Mr. Brooke, I hope you will excuse my sister.
No use trying to apologize for Joe.
Nice talk, Lori. You were running just as fast.
Faster? I would have caught you, but I'm too much of a gent.
I feel it is I who must apologize for my student's behavior, Miss March. It cannot reflect well on a tutor when his pupil...
Oh, bosh and nonsense!
Joe!
I'm going in. Goodbye, Lori. Are you coming, Meg?
In a moment. Good afternoon, Mr. Brooke, and thank you for your company.
The pleasure was all mine, Miss March.
And thank you for the gallop, Mr. Lawrence. It was indescribable.
And same to you, Josephine. Ta-ta.
Come along, Lori.
Bye.
Joe March, I'll never talk to you again as long as I live.
Meg!
Meg, we're waiting for Beth to come back from Mason's and thought you...
Look, a piano. Can you believe such a thing?
Is it from...
I should say so. 3 of his servants brought it over not 10 minutes ago.
What a capital fellow old Mr. Lawrence is. And there's a letter, too. What does it say?
It's addressed to Beth.
What could be taking her? I can't wait to see her face.
Here she comes.
Let me tell her. No, I was here when they brought it.
Calm yourselves, girls, or you'll frighten dear Beth.
Hush, everybody.
Marmee, they didn't have any more blue thread, so I just got... What has happened?
It was delivered while you were out.
But
And there is a letter for you.
for me?
It's from the old gentleman.
Isn't it beautiful?
I say it's the most splendid thing.
It took 3 of them to bring it in.
Read the letter.
What does it say?
We're just dying to know.
You read it, Marmee. I can't. I feel so... Oh, it's too lovely.
It is addressed, Miss Elizabeth March. Dear Madam,
Oh, how nice it sounds. I wish someone would write to me so.
I have had many pairs of slippers.
In my time, but none suited me so well as yours. The delicate needlepoint in them reminds me so of my own gentle mother's hand, and I will treasure them always. I have delayed in thanking you, I fear too long, as I contemplated how to repay you. I like to pay my debts, so I hope you will allow the old gentleman to send you something which once belonged to the little granddaughter he lost. I have long hidden her things away, but when I saw you on the steps that evening, you reminded me so of her. I can think of no better place for her piano than with you. With hearty thanks, I remain
Your humble servant, James Lawrence.
Christopher Columbus, you've made a friend, Beth. Your humble servant, James Lawrence. Only think of his writing that to you. Wait till I tell those girls at school.
Play it, Beth. Let's hear how it sounds.
Go ahead, Miss Beth.
Play that thing you were practicing yesterday.
I must thank him.
Of course, dear.
You write a note, I'll bring it over. I can bring it over.
No, I must go over there and thank him myself. Right now. Yes, now.
Well, if that isn't the strangest thing I've ever seen. That piano has turned her head. She's never have gone in her right mind.
Marmee, do you think Beth is all right?
I'm sure she is.
Let's watch from the window.
Oh, there she is, at the gates.
She's turning back. She's gone scared. No, look, she's heading for the door.
I do believe the world is coming to an end.
What is it?
I only came to thank you, sir, for...
Weeks passed, and still I heard nothing from the newspaper editor. I had just about given up hope when I received a note saying they would print my story, but not until the fall when ads picked up. My payment? No money, but the experience of being published. Of course I told no one, except for Lori, who I swore to secrecy, and I waited for the big day.
But I shall not forget you, Angelo whispered as the darkness came over him. The sounds of the nightingale grew louder, and Viola pressed his hand to her cheek. She could not speak, except to moan his name over and over again, but she would not weep. His death would give her a strength that would last her all her life. And when it came time for the nightingale to sing its last song for her, the name of Angelo parted on her lips, as did his last breath. The end.
I like that one better than the story they had last week.
This one was so romantic.
Yes, but I don't know if she really loved him. Otherwise, she would have wept real tears, I'm sure.
I love the name Angelo. Don't you?
Who wrote it, Joe?
Your sister.
You?
Joe wrote it?
I knew it. I knew it. Joe, I'm so proud of you.
Let me see.
There it is.
By Miss Josephine March. That's what it says.
That is wonderful, Joe, and your father will be so pleased.
It's a start. I mean, no one much will notice.
We know you are the most clever girl, and now it's in print, so others will know too.
By Miss Josephine March. It sounds so elegant. Wait till I tell those girls at school.
You must tell us, Joe, how this all came about.
Last spring, I went to see the editor at the newspaper office, and, well, you wouldn't believe what a sour old face he has. But
Mrs. March, it's one of those telegram things. It was just delivered.
Here, Hannah.
What is it, Marmee?
Father?
It's from a hospital in Washington. Father is very ill. It says I should come at once.
Oh, God, protect us.
Children, I'll have to leave right away. Oh, poor Father. Help me get ready, girls. There's so much to do.
The preparations were made quickly and quietly. I got Lori to run down to Main Street to telegram the hospital that Marmee was on her way. Beth and Amy did the packing, and Meg and Marmee went down to the bank to withdraw our meager savings, and then to the train depot to purchase a ticket for Washington. My job, I felt, was the most awful. I was to deliver a note Marmee had written to Aunt March, asking for some money for expenses.
Of course you came to me. Hadn't I said it was absurd for a man of your father's age and condition to go into the army? Hadn't I predicted no good would come of it? But did anyone listen to me?
Father is very ill, Aunt March, and Mother is leaving on the 4 o'clock train. We need your help.
This is a considerable amount of money mentioned in this letter.
Whatever you can spare, Auntie.
He had no business putting his family into such a position.
We are very proud of Father, even if you aren't. And we never asked for your lousy money if we had anywhere else to turn.
Josephine!
I'll go then. So sorry to bother you, Aunt March.
I will think the matter over carefully and let your mother know before 4 o'clock. Meanwhile, I shall try to forget your impudence, young lady.
Here are 2 bottles of wine to bring to him, Mrs. March. I assure you that they are of some quality and will be appreciated once he's feeling better. And my dressing gown.
Mr. Lawrence, that is not necessary.
Nonsense. I only wish I could escort you myself, but I do not travel well in this kind of weather and would soon prove a burden to you. So I've just decided to send Mr. Brooke with you instead.
John, I will not hear of
It has
it.
all been arranged.
Mr. Lawrence has some commissions for me in Washington that I must attend to, and I shall be more than happy to be of service to you there.
Bless you both.
Nearly time for the train, ladies.
Let's get this trunk closed up.
Here's the money Aunt March sent over, Marmee.
And here's your scarf. Beth and I hemmed it.
Thank you, girls. But where is Joe?
She's been gone over an hour.
John, Theodore, best get this trunk out to the carriage.
Yes, grandfather.
Girls, I won't have you going down to the station.
But Marmee...
I couldn't bear it. Now you must obey Hannah. I leave you to her care and Mr. Lawrence's protection.
Here's Joe. Joe, where have you been?
Oh, Joe, I was afraid I would miss you.
Sorry about all the fret. Here, my contribution towards making Father comfortable and bringing him home.
$25?
Where did you get it?
Joe, I hope you haven't done anything rash.
No, it's mine, honest. I didn't beg, borrow, or steal it. I earned it. You see, I made a frightful mess of dealing with Aunt March.
But she already sent the money, Jim.
Did she? I was hoping she would, but I couldn't be sure. I felt pretty responsible for making such a fuss and thought it was my job to... Well, I only sold what was my own.
Your hair!
Your beautiful hair!
Oh, Joe, how could you?
Christopher Columbus!
My dear, there was no need for this. But I love you all the more because of it.
Doesn't affect the fate of the nation or anything. I was walking down Walnut Street and I saw these long tails of hair in the shop window and they didn't seem any better than mine. Figured it would do my brains good to have this mop taken off. Well, if it looks a bit boyish now, that's more to my style, wouldn't you say?
Joe, you are the darndest girl I ever knew.
I will use the money wisely, Joe, for I know what you have done to get it.
The train, dear ladies.
Girls, you must each write to me.
Every day, Marmee. I will see to it.
And be strong, and do not fret. And God will bless us and keep us all.
Goodbye, Marmee.
Give our love to Father.
Don't forget the lunch basket.
Take good care of her, John.
That night, I stayed up late and kept away from the others.
Joe, you haven't gone to bed yet either.
No.
I can hear Amy snoring up there. Thank goodness the young ones can sleep.
Yes.
Joe, everything will be all right in the end, don't you think?
Yes. I see John Brooke is going with Marmee to...
I won't hear you say.
He's a good man, Meg. Glad he's with her.
Yes.
Oh, Meg.
What is it, dear? Are you crying about Father?
Not now.
And Mother will be fine.
I know.
What then?
My hair!
The weather grew cold and rainy as the days got shorter, and the March family, scattered about as they were, tried to keep together by way of the U.S. mail service.
Dearest Mother, how happy your last letter made us all feel. We were so glad to hear that Father is improving that we laughed and cried over it all afternoon long. How kind Mr. Brooke is, and how fortunate that Mr. Lawrence's business detains him near you so long, since he is so useful to you and Father.
Ma chère Mama, I'm behaving myself very well, even though Meg sometimes says otherwise, but I try and keep peace, even when Joe acts so unladylike and I have to point it out to her. My French lessons are coming along well, but Hattie King does disturb me when she shows off and talks French really fast, and she knows I cannot bonjour and merci like her because I've never been to France, and she has. The sleeves of my blue dress were all worn out, so Meg put in new ones, but they don't match like I'd wish them to.
Dear Mother, I'm going to press some pansies from the garden in this letter for you and Father. They are the last of the summer, for the frost came again last night, and the flower beds look so mournful. I've been practicing Morning at Rest on the piano, but it makes me sad because it is one of Father's favorites. I remember to wind the clocks every day, and I've been going over to the Hummels to help with the baby. Mrs. Hummel misses you so and talks about you often, even though I can only understand a little of what she says.
My precious Marmee, 3 cheers for Father and his much improved self. We are all behaving ourselves here, more or less. Aunt March grows more cross with the coming of winter, but I hold my tongue. Honest, I do. Laurie comes over often and keeps us in cheer, for he can be such a silly boy at times. And Mr. Lawrence is so kind playing the father to us. I think he rather enjoys it. I tried to write some more, but every time I shut myself in the attic, I just stare at the old furniture up here and my brain throbs with idleness. Your daughter authoress needs her family back together before genius can burn again, I'm afraid.
Give my dearest love to Father, and believe me when I say how much we miss you both. Your own, Meg.
Adieu, très love to Papa, your affectionate daughter, Amy Curtis March.
Oh, do come home soon to your loving little Beth.
Give him the lovingest hug that ever was, and kiss yourself a dozen times from your topsy-turvy Joe. Christopher Columbus, what's the matter, Beth?
No!
Beth?
You've had scarlet fever, haven't you?
Years ago when Meg did. Why?
Then I'll tell you. Joe, the baby's dead.
Baby?
Mrs. Hummels died in my arms just before she got home.
Oh, my poor dear, how dreadful for you.
It wasn't dreadful, Joe, only so sad. Mrs. Hummel had gone to get the doctor, and I was holding the baby and singing to her that lullaby that Marmee always used to. She seemed to be asleep. Then all of a sudden she let out a little cry and then trembled and then lay very still. The doctor said it was scarlet fever.
But, Beth, you've never had scarlet fever.
The doctor told me to go home and take belladonna right away.
And so you shall. Hannah, let's get this wet coat off of you. Come, sit here. I should have never let you go to the Hummels. I should have gone myself. Meg! Amy!
Don't let Amy come near. She's never had it, and I should hate to give it to her.
Heavens, what's all this shouting about?
It's Beth. She may have the fever.
Oh, Lord, protect us. Beth did have the fever, and by the next morning her frail little body was burning with the ailment. We wanted to telegraph Marmee right away, but Hannah wouldn't hear of it. Amy, much against her will, was sent to Aunt March's house to stay. Twice a day, Dr. Banks came by to check on Beth, and Meg had a telegram all written and ready to send in case Beth's condition got worse. After 5 days, Beth lost consciousness, and the doctor ordered that Mrs. March be sent for. Meg went down to send the telegram, and I retreated to my attic room with more despair than I had ever felt before.
What is it, Joe? Is Beth worse?
We sent for Marmee. The doctor told us to.
Oh, Joe, it's not as bad as that.
She doesn't even know us, Lori. Her eyes are open and she sees nothing. There's nobody to help us bear it. Mother and father gone, and God seems so far away I can't find him.
I'm here, Joe. Hold on to me, Joe.
Beth is my conscience, my soul. I can't give her up. I can't.
Poor girl. You're so worn out. You've gotten no sleep and...
Lori, why is it that good and dear people always die young?
Not always. It's just in books.
Oh, Lori.
If it's any comfort to you, your mother will be here soon.
Perhaps not soon enough. Meg only sent the telegram an hour ago.
But I telegraphed her yesterday.
You did?
Hannah's instructions be dashed. I wired yesterday morning, and John Burke answered she'd be here at once.
Oh, you did? Oh, Lori. Sorry, I didn't mean to. It's just, you're such a dear, I couldn't help flying at you.
I don't mind.
Marmee's coming.
On the late train. I shall meet her at the station at 2 in the morning.
Lori, you're such an angel. How can I ever thank you?
Fly at me again. I rather like it.
The hours ticked by slowly, and there was no change in Beth's condition. If only Marmee would come. If only Marmee would come.
If God spares Beth, I never will complain again.
If God spares Beth, I shall try to love him and serve him all my life.
I wish I had no heart. It aches so.
Life is often as hard as this, Meg. I'm not sure how we shall ever get through it. Hannah, what's happening?
Oh, my poor Beth.
Hannah?
The fever's turned. She's sleeping natural. Her skin is damp and she's breathing easy. Praise be given, oh my goodness me.
Thank you, Lori.
Marmee?
She's come.
She's come.
Oh, my girls, where's our Beth?
Hannah was right. The fever passed, and by morning, Beth's eyes were clear and quite bright. With Marmee home again and all of us nursing and tending to her, Beth gradually got her strength back. And by Christmas Eve, she was well enough to be brought downstairs to join the rest of the family.
Here she comes.
Mr. Lawrence, they're bringing her down.
Watch out below. Here she comes.
3 cheers for Beth. Beth, look at the tree. It's not nearly as nice as if you had helped, but...
Don't drop her, Lori.
She's light as a feather.
Put her down on the sofa.
Gently, Lori.
Merry Christmas, my dear one.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Doesn't she just look splendid?
I'll get the wine.
Beth, Mr. Lawrence has provided the most marvelous treats.
Once again.
Grandfather can't help himself when it comes to the March girls.
Are you comfortable there, my dear?
Oh, yes.
Here's something to celebrate with. A little taste of this, Miss Beth, and you'll have the color back in your cheeks.
I'll get the special wine glasses.
It is Christmas, after all.
John.
You've returned.
And I have a special Christmas present for the March family.
Father.
Father!
And so the March family was all together once again. It would be the last time, for the days that followed were filled with new experiences and new people. I can only pause and smile now when I think back to that moment in time, that Christmas 1864, and I frown and I laugh when I think of what will become of those 4 little women. Spring came, and with it, young love. Not for Joe March, thank you, but for Meg. Losing her was inevitable, but as was my way, I wasn't about to give her up without a fight.
Please stop referring to Mr. Brooke as my John. It isn't proper or true. He's not mine. I've told you I don't care much about him, and that's all there is to be said.
But, Meg, you're not your old self, not a bit. You seem so far away from me at times, and I know it is because of him. And Lori tells me things.
What things?
How John feels about you.
Oh, don't gossip about it, Joe. I couldn't bear it.
I know you. He'll come over here someday and get down on both knees to propose, and you won't know what to say. Instead of giving him a firm no, you'll blush and cry and give in to him.
I'm not so silly and weak as you think. I know just what to say, for I have planned it all, so I needn't be taken unawares.
Have you really? What will you say to him?
I should merely say, quite calmly and decidedly, Thank you, Mr. Brooke. You are very kind, but I agree with my father that I am too young to enter into any engagement at present. So please, say no more, but let us be friends as we were.
Capital. Oh, if only I could be there to see it.
What do you mean?
He's coming today. Lori and I guess it will be today.
Today?
I'm so glad you're prepared, Meg. Everything will be all right after all. I'd give anything to see his face.
Joe, where are you going?
Be firm, Meg.
Good afternoon. I came to get my umbrella. That is, to see how your father finds himself today.
It's very well. He's in the rack. I'll get him and tell it you are here. Oh, please, sit down, Mr. Brooke. I'll get my father.
Don't go. Are you afraid of me, Margaret?
How can I be afraid when you've been so kind to Father and all of us? I only wish I could thank you for it.
Shall I tell you how?
Oh, no, please don't. I'd rather not.
I won't trouble you. I love you so much, Meg. I only want to know if you care for me a little.
Thank you, Mr. Brooke. You are very kind, but I don't know.
Will you try and find out? I want to know so much.
I'm too young.
I'll wait. In the meantime, you could be learning to like me. Would it be such a difficult thing to learn?
Not if I choose to learn it, but...
Please choose to learn, Meg, and perhaps I can help. I do love to teach, and this will be easier than German.
I don't choose. Please, go away and leave me be.
Do you really mean that?
Yes, I do.
And may I hope that you'll change your mind someday?
Don't
play with me, Meg. I didn't think that of you.
Don't think of me at all, then.
I wonder if that is possible.
Bless me, what's all this?
Excuse me.
It's Father's friend. I'm so surprised to see you, Aunt March.
That's evident. But what is Father's friend saying to make you look like a peony? There is mischief going on here, Margaret, and I insist on knowing what it is.
We were merely talking. Mr. Brooke came for his umbrella.
Brooke? The Lawrence boys' tutor? And is that the sort of person you associate with? Hired help?
Hush, he'll hear you.
Don't hush me, young lady. I've something to say to you, and I must free my mind at once. Tell me, do you mean to go and marry this person? For if you do, not one penny of mine ever goes to you. Remember that, and be a sensible girl.
I shall marry whom I please, Aunt March, and you can leave your money to anyone you like.
Highty-tighty. Is that the way you take my advice, miss? You'll be sorry for it by and by when you've tried love in a shabby little cottage and found it a failure.
It can't be any worse than what some people find in big houses.
Now, Meg, my dear, be reasonable and take my advice. I mean it kindly. I don't want you to spoil your whole life by making a mistake at the beginning. You ought to marry well and help your family. It is your duty to make a rich match.
Mother and father don't think so. They like John even though he is poor.
Your parents, my dear, have no more worldly wisdom than two babies.
I am glad of it.
This tutor has no money, No respectable relations, I understand. No prospects.
John is good and wise. He's got heaps of talent. He's willing to work and sure to get on. Everyone likes him and respects him, and I'm proud to think he cares for me, though I'm poor and young and silly.
He knows you have rich relations, child. That is the secret of his liking, I suspect.
Aunt March, how dare you say such a thing? My John wouldn't marry for money any more than I would.
Well, I wash my hands of the whole affair. You are a willful child, and you'll lose more than you know by this piece of folly. Don't expect anything from me when you're married. I'm done with you forever.
Thank you for defending me, Meg.
John, you heard?
And I thank your Aunt March for proving that you do care for me a little.
I didn't know how much until she said all those awful things about you.
And I needn't go away,
No.
but may stay and be happy? May I?
Yes, John.
Christopher Columbus.
They were married that summer, and though I was resigned to it, I couldn't help but blame Aunt March for it all. The war finally came to an end, and Father was hired as an assistant minister at the church. Meg and John settled in a small house not far away, and before a year passed, they had twins, a boy and a girl. Everyone was thrilled except for Aunt March, who found it excessive. I no longer worked for a rich relative. During her stay there, while Beth was ill, Amy made a more favorable impression on Aunt March than I ever did. Soon, Amy was reading to the old woman. Beth's frail health was much the worse for her bout with the scarlet fever, and she was able to help Hannah less and less. But her pure and open spirit remained unchanged. As for myself, my writing occupied more and more of my time, and I was able to sell a story often enough to contribute substantially to the family. But with Laurie away at college and Meg out of the house, life seemed quieter and much less fun. Was it because I was finally growing up?
Is this the home of the literary genius Miss March you hear so much talk about?
Lori, what a surprise, but your letter said.
I left campus a few days early, and I did well in my exams, you'll be pleased to hear. John Brooke ought to be proud.
Me too. He is not the only one who had to drum some sense into that head of yours. So come and tell me all the news. Did you propose marriage to anyone this week?
Not this week.
You are incorrigible, Lori. According to your letters, you've fallen in love every month this past semester.
Don't be like that, Joe. Jealousy isn't for you.
Jealousy? I just didn't want you to give flirting a bad name. And you do flirt atrociously, Lori.
I'm learning, and I'm glad you can't flirt, Joe. It's nice to see a sensible, straightforward girl who can be jolly and kind without making a fool of herself.
Oh, yes, I've grown very mature and dignified since you've been away.
Have you? I see you print the hem on that shirt.
Oh, that. Couldn't be helped.
And Grandfather says you gave Amy a mild shock by racing all the way to church on Easter Sunday.
I was late. Besides, it was a luscious day.
You haven't changed.
You have? Why are you looking at me in that way?
In what way?
That painfully serious way?
Is it so obvious?
Lori, what is it?
I must say something, Joe, and you must hear me. We've got to have it out.
I don't think I like this conversation, but say what you will. I'll listen.
I've loved you ever since I've known you, Joe. Couldn't help it. And I've tried to show you in the past, but you wouldn't let me.
I wish to save you from this, Lori. I only wanted you to understand that I don't.
I know. But it made me love you all the more. Being away at school these 2 years and meeting so many new people, knowing what other girls are like, it only made me want to be with you. I've waited and I've hoped, knowing I'm not half good enough for you.
Yes, you are. You're a great deal too good for me. And I am so grateful to you and proud and fond of you. Somehow I don't love you in the way you want me to. I've tried, but I can't change the feeling. And it would be a lie to say I do when I don't.
Really? Truly, Joe?
Really. Truly, dear. I'm so sorry. So desperately sorry. I wish you wouldn't take it so hard.
How am I supposed to take it, Joe? We aren't children anymore. We aren't playing a game. We cannot always remain like we were.
Can't we? I suppose not.
Of course, there's only one logical explanation for your lack of feeling for me.
There is?
There's someone else you love.
Someone else indeed. Wild old Joe March. Who'd have me? No, Lori. There's no one else. I haven't the slightest idea of going off and loving anybody else.
Anything more?
Nothing more. Except that I don't believe I shall ever marry. I'm happy as I am, and I love my liberty too well to give it up for any mortal man.
I know better. You think so now, but there will come a time sooner than you think when you'll meet someone. Some fool who makes you believe that you're something that you're not. And you'll love him tremendously and live and die for him. Well, I, for one, will not be able to stand by and watch such a thing happen.
Lori, where are you going?
To the devil!
The other day what my wishes were, Marmee?
Yes, Joe. You seemed somewhat despondent, and I wanted to know what was on your mind.
Well, I'll tell you one of my wishes. I want to go away this winter for a change.
Why, Joe?
I want something new. I feel restless and anxious.
Anxious for what, dear?
To be doing and seeing and learning more than I am. Aunt March used to talk of going to Europe and taking me with her. Oh, how I used to dream that it would come true. Now I know it never will. Lately, all I do is brood over my own small affairs. I need stirring up to try my wings.
And where would you like to try wings?
New York? I had a bright idea yesterday, and this is it. You know, Miss Kirk wrote to you, asking if you knew of some respectable young person to teach her children to sew and whatnot. I think I should suit her if I tried.
I'm sure you would. And it would be a great experience for you, but what if you're writing?
All the better for a change. I've gotten so stale here. In New York, I will see new things and get new ideas.
I'm sure you will, but are these the only reasons for this sudden fancy?
No, Marmee.
It's Lori, isn't it?
Yes.
You don't love him in the way it is evident that he cares for you?
I can't help it. I love the dear boy as I always have, but no, not in the way he wishes.
I'm glad of that, Joe.
You are?
Yes. Because I don't think you are suited to one another. As friends, you are very happy together, but I fear you are too alike and too fond of freedom, not to mention your strong wills, to ever be truly happy as husband and wife.
So, you don't mind? I mean, Aunt March would have a conniption fit if she knew I was tossing off a Lawrence.
Let's just say this. Mrs. Moffat will have reason for hope for her Clara.
Marmee.
We'll discuss your New York idea with Father after dinner this evening.
So plans were made to send Joe March out into the wide, wide world. Mrs. Kirk gladly accepted me, and the travel arrangements were made. But leaving Beth was the most difficult part of my plan.
Write to you about everything, Beth. Every day if I can. And you'll have such wonderful letters to keep you company instead of moody old Joe like you have now.
Oh, Joe, I am so happy for you.
Are you, my dear?
I always knew you would have to leave this place and go off to become a great writer.
Well, governess at Miss Kirk's boarding house isn't quite the same as writing poetry in Paris, but it's a start.
I shall miss you, Joe.
And I shall miss you, my precious Beth. I'd take you with me.
No, Joe. I belong here, and only here.
I arrived in New York so timid and nervous that no one back home would have recognized their wild Joe. But once in Mrs. Kirk's boarding house, I started to feel a little more sure of myself.
Now, my dear, make yourself at home. I'm on the go from morning to night, as you may suppose, with the boarders in my own family, but a great anxiety will be off my mind if I know the girls are safe with you. You use this sitting room for lessons, but all of my rooms are open to you. I promised your dear mother I'd do all I could to make you comfortable. There are some pleasant people in the house if you're feeling sociable, and your evenings are always free. You come to me if you have any problems, and I will do my best to... What in heaven's name? Girls, what are you doing to the professor?
Oh, Miss Kirk, I am afraid I am to blame.
He really is a bear, Mama. Didn't I tell you?
Get off the professor immediately, Kitty.
My turn.
Oh, I am afraid not, Miss Minnie. We are disturbing all the boarders.
What will Miss March think of us, I shouldn't wonder? Josephine, these are my girls, Minnie and Kitty. Say hello to Miss March.
Hello.
And this is Professor Bear. He's in the second floor rear room.
I must apologize for my rude behavior, Miss March.
Not at all. I do a pretty good bear impersonation myself.
You see, Miss Kirk, the children were teasing me about my name again. Professor Bear is a bear, they say. And so I become a bear for them.
I've told you girls to leave the professor alone when he's working. Thank goodness you've come, Josephine, before my girls become as wild as horses. Now off and get your tea, girls. Mrs. O'Connor set it out in the kitchen half an hour ago. They are not bad girls, Josephine.
Bad girls? No, not at all, but very spirited.
That's the word, spirited. The professor knows.
But I must not intrude any further. Good afternoon, Miss March. I hope you like it here.
Sure I will.
Good. Now I must return to my room.
He's a dear man from Berlin. Very learned and good, but poor as a church mouse. He takes in pupils and does some translating, but in Europe he was quite the scholar, they say. It's a sad story. Now, let me show you to your room, right this way. It's got a fine view of the church tower.
And so began my career as a governess. As for my other career, New York was both a stimulating and discouraging place. I submitted a news story to a weekly newspaper, only to be told that it wasn't sensational enough. It wasn't until I added gypsies, bandits, murderers, and duchesses that they liked it. But I became a New York writer's source, but at what a price. I soon learned that Professor Bear was indeed a scholar, as Mrs. Kirk had said. That German knew more literature and English than I had ever imagined knowing.
Ah, Miss March.
Professor.
I have been anxious to show you something, so I wait here because I know you will come.
What is it, Professor?
I found the Emerson that I mentioned to you yesterday. It was hiding in my room with all the books and papers that make such a mess. But I find it, and I give it to you.
Thank you. And I shall return it as quickly as...
No. For you to keep. I give it to you because this book says what is in my heart about writers.
Why, thank you.
Read what is written inside.
Miss Josephine March, may all your words be as extraordinary as the field you have chosen. Frederick Bear. Why, Professor, I don't know what to say.
Then say nothing. It makes me happy to give it.
These words shame me, Professor.
Why do you say that?
I've yet to write anything extraordinary. I'm just a scribbler and a pretty ordinary one at that.
Perhaps sometime you will let me see.
Read my stories? I'd be too embarrassed. You know so much and...
I will not read them like a teacher, but like a friend.
Well, all right. Someday.
Good. Now you must tell me what you thought about the Goldsmith novel.
As the weeks passed, I felt as if Mrs. Kirk's boarding house was mine as well. Little Kitty and Minnie were indeed spirited, but we liked each other from the start and had a grand time.
Eight plus 8 equals 16. 9 plus 9 equals 18. 10 plus 10 equals 20.
Josephine, you're back, finally.
We've just been to the park. Is everything all right, Miss Kirk?
We were counting lampposts, Mama. And squirrels.
That's very nice, girls, but Miss March has visitors.
I have?
Yes, dear, waiting in the sitting room. Come along, girls.
11 plus 11.
equals 22. 12 plus 12 equals 24.
Amy! Aunt March! Joe!
Finally, do you realize we've been waiting here for over 30 minutes?
Hello, Aunt March. Amy, such a surprise. Why didn't you write and tell me you were coming for a visit?
We aren't here for a visit. I thought we should pay a common courtesy call since we are passing through.
Passing through?
Our boat leaves this afternoon, Joe. I'm accompanying Aunt March to Europe.
Europe? Oh, Amy, I am so happy for you.
I know I once spoke of bringing you with me, Josephine, but Amy is a much more suitable companion, you must admit.
I hope you don't mind terribly, Joe. I know how you've always dreamt of going.
I am disappointed, that's for certain, but I'll get there someday. In the meantime, Amy, how marvelous for you. You'll see the world's greatest paintings and...
I am going purely for medicinal reasons. I shall be taking the waters in a highly respectable manner and tending to my health.
I will write to you about everything. I believe Europe will make a real woman of me.
I'm sure it will. And maybe you'll meet a handsome Italian count and marry into his titled family and live in a palazzo.
And I will send for you, and we will dig in the Roman Forum for relics and carry out the plans we've made so many times.
Ridiculous chatter, the very idea. Come, Amy, you must see that my trunks are put aboard safely.
Must you go already?
Steamships do not wait for idle talk. Goodbye, Josephine.
Goodbye, Aunt March. I mean, bon voyage.
I promise I will write. And if you'd like, I'll give my best to Laurie and Mr. Lawrence when we meet them in Paris.
Laurie? In Paris?
But didn't you know? Surely Laurie stopped to say hello when they were in New York last month.
No.
They left on the 15th. I think it's what convinced Aunt March to go. She said if Europe was good enough for the Lawrences, it was good enough for...
Amy!
Oh, goodbye, Joe.
Professor?
I wanted to talk to you about your stories. Oh, but this is a bad time, perhaps.
No, a very good time, Professor. You read them all?
Ah, yes.
Well, give me the truth and don't be stingy with it.
Miss Joe.
Pretty awful, aren't they?
It is only that. My friend, why do you waste your talent like this? You are too good for such... Oh, I am too cruel. I don't know my place.
No, it's not you, Professor. It's just...
Tell me, my friend.
It's just that Aunt March is off to Europe with Amy when for years she said she would bring me. And then I find out that Laurie was in New York last month and didn't even stop and call on me.
Laurie, this is the friend you've told me so much about?
Yes.
He must be a very foolish man to do such a thing.
Professor, I'm the fool. I deserve everything that's happened to me. And you're right about those stories. I should be ashamed. But the maid of the dungeon paid for this year's Christmas gifts, and the gypsy lover let me buy books and send some money home.
You have talent, Miss Joe. I can tell from these that you have great talent.
Do you really think so?
But you must treat your talent with care. You must only write what you feel here, in your heart, in your soul. Then your talent will blossom. Then you will truly be a writer.
You're so kind, Professor, and so wise. I will do as you say, and I thank you.
Bean, such a delightful time I'm having in Paris. Ma chère Josephine, Paris is très magnifique. Such a delightful time I'm having in Paris, and even Auntie March has to admit that, on occasion, there certainly is something to Paris, for they have such a respect for the old and old-fashioned things. On sunny days, I'm in the Tuileries Gardens, and on rainy days, I'm in the Louvre reveling in the pictures. I'm cultivating my eye and taste as fast as I can. Laurie makes fun of me, but he's so très fou sometimes. Yesterday, at the museum, I saw Napoleon's cocked hat and gray coat, his baby cradle, and even his old toothbrush. Also, Marie Antoinette's little shoe, the ring of St. Denis, Charlemagne's sword, and many other interesting things. Who'd imagine that I get to see such things? Oh, Auntie March is calling, so I must close now. I long to see you again, and in spite of all my nonsense, I am votre amie.
Air numbly and sweetly recommends itself unto our gentle senses.
I don't know if the kind Miss Kirk would appreciate her boarding house being compared to Macbeth's castle.
It is wonderful, Professor. It's always been my dream to see Macbeth performed on stage.
I thought it was your dream to play Macbeth yourself.
That too. What I could do with the dagger scene.
Oh, I should very much like to see it.
What a villain I would be. That man tonight was capital, just like I imagined. But I'd still like to get my hands on the Scottish Thane. I will not yield. To kiss the ground before young Malcolm's feet and to be baited with the rabble's curse.
Bravo, bravo.
That was always our favorite scene, Lori and I.
Tell me, have you heard from your friend Lori lately?
No. Amy saw him in Paris, though, but not a word from him. I did mess everything up there, Professor.
Perhaps you only did what was in your heart.
Perhaps. I'll never know for sure. What a lovely time I had tonight. I want to be something special, Professor. I want to do marvelous and exciting things. If I can't play Macbeth, then I shall write stuff just as glorious. Such a conceit. But if you don't tell Mr. Shakespeare, then I won't.
Have you been writing lately, my friend?
I tried. But it all comes out so... It's like you said, Professor, it must come from the heart or else it's nothing. Look at me going on and on. Got pupils first thing in the morning, and Minnie and Kitty will be up early. Here I am prattling on about goodness knows what.
Then I must thank you for an enjoyable evening, and say my good night.
But I must thank you. Wait till I write Beth and tell her all about it. I wish you could meet my Beth, Professor. She's not a silly goose like her sister. She's so true.
I should very much like to meet her someday.
Of course she'd be petrified of you.
Am I so fearsome?
No, not at all. But she does shy away from strangers. When she got to know you, she'd see...
What would she see, Miss Jo?
Very kind, very dear friend. Someone she could trust and depend on.
Yes, she would.
So late. Best turn the lamp off in here. A letter from Meg. Miss Kirk must have brought it in when we left for the theater.
What is it, Miss Jo?
Joe, Marmee doesn't know I'm writing this to you, and she would not approve. But come home as soon as you can, Joe. Beth is much worse, and I fear...
Miss Jo?
It's my Beth. She's quite ill, and I must leave first thing in the morning for home.
I see.
I'm sure Miss Kirk will understand. Excuse me, I must start packing.
I understand. Perhaps you will allow me to accompany you to the train station in the morning. I would like to be of some service.
Could you? Thank you. Excuse me.
I returned home to a dark and quiet house. How quickly it had all happened. From a family joyfully reunited that Christmas Eve to this cold February day when all was silence and waiting.
Can I see Beth?
Not now, Joe. She's sleeping soundly and your mother's with her. Come in here and let me look at you. Wow, Joe. How different you seem.
Your Joe is the same, I'm afraid. No chance of improvement. I must have said the wrong thing at least twice a day when I was in New York, but I don't regret any of it. I had such a capital time.
So we gathered from your letters. But it's so good to have you home again.
What of Beth? She will get better, won't she, Father?
I'm afraid not. Every doctor says the same thing, and hoping for recovery now seems almost prideful. All we can do is keep Beth comfortable and appreciate her sweet disposition while we still have her with us.
Oh, Father.
Beth had indeed maintained her sweet and unselfish ways. We spent hours together in her room, talking of foolish things and days gone by. It wasn't until several days after my return that we were able to speak of what truly occupied our minds.
When I am gone, Joe, you must stand by Mother and Father.
We won't talk of such things.
But we must. You see, Meg has John and the twins to comfort her, and Amy has a whole new world opening up to her. But Mother and Father, they will need you all the more, Joe.
I will try my best, Beth, but I'd rather believe.
Please don't. I've been resigned to it for so long that it only hurts me to see those I love trying so hard to keep hoping. You see, Joe, I always have had the feeling that it was never intended that I should live long.
That is just a morbid fancy you have because you feel so unwell.
I've always known. I'm not like the rest of you. I never made plans about what I'd do when I grew up. I never saw myself as grown or married. I couldn't seem to imagine myself anything but shy little Beth, hiding myself away in this house, of no use anywhere but here. I wanted never to go away, and the hard part now is leaving you all. I am not afraid, Joe, but it seems as if I shall be homesick for all of you, even in heaven.
Beth was with us until the spring, and then one night, as quietly and unobtrusively as she had tried to be all her life, she left us. Her face that morning was so full of painless peace that even those of us who loved her best couldn't help but smile through the tears, and we thank God that Beth was well at last. What would Joe March do without her conscience, her soul? Well, Beth had left them behind with me, and not knowing how else to handle my grief, I turned to writing. I wrote about Beth, and about me and all of us, and how angry and alone I felt. And the more I wrote, the more I started to understand what the professor had said about writing only what you can feel in your heart. But enough adventure for Joe March for the moment. Elsewhere, another adventure was taking place. I will now tell you the romance of Amy and Laurie as it was later related to me by the participants themselves. It began in Paris.
Ah, there you are, mademoiselle. Your aunt said I might find you here. Now tell me, how many times are you going to sketch that same statue?
Until I get it right.
It looks frightful enough as a statue. Why put it on paper as well?
It is a very great statue, Laurie, and by sketching it, I will try to understand its greatness. That is what all the art books say.
I'm bored of statues and gardens, and Amy, come for a ride with me this afternoon. The valet at the hotel told me of a town right outside of Paris that has bullfights.
No, thank you.
Why not?
You've forgotten, Laurie, that I'm in Europe as Aunt March's companion.
You know the old woman will nap all afternoon.
And while I am not required by her, I will use this time to broaden my horizons and add to my cultural well-being.
Ah, so you're so busy trying to be a highbrow lady that you don't know how to have any fun.
And you, Mr. Lawrence, are so busy being a child that you don't know how to do anything but have fun.
Me? A child? Why, you're the one who...
I got the arm so wrong.
Oh.
Then, a few weeks later, in Heidelberg,
Joe wrote to me about this German professor in New York who taught her all about Beethoven and how to appreciate his music.
Did she?
She explained that to truly understand Beethoven, you had to understand the German temperament.
I'm sure that's true.
Music is something that is so easy to like, but so difficult to really appreciate.
Then I suppose I shouldn't bother.
You know, Joe is right about you, Laurie.
I very much doubt it.
You are a frightfully unserious person. She said, as a childhood playmate, you would be ideal. But as a grown-up adult, well, something is lacking.
Joe said that?
Well, she implied it.
What does Joe know about it anyway? Did she ever act like a grown-up adult?
No, come to think of it.
There you have it.
Still, I think of a man...
I'm trying to listen to the music.
things got somewhat more difficult in Baden-Baden.
Laurie, there you are.
Ah, Amy, I never thought I'd find you in a casino. Have you a change of heart or what?
I've been looking for you everywhere. Your grandfather needs you. He seems rather ill this evening and...
And he sent you after me?
No. I just thought you ought to know.
I know. All he's done since we've come here is complain. Heavens, people come to Baden-Baden to improve their health. He comes here to get sick.
So you leave him all alone and go off to some gambling casino to spend all his money?
My money. What's left of it? If it were his money, I'd still be inside there.
Theodore Lawrence,
Yes, Miss Wilbur and Amy March.
Do you want to know what I honestly think of you?
Pining to be told.
Well, I despise you.
Why's that, pray?
Because with every chance for being good, useful, and happy, you are faulty, lazy, and miserable.
Strong language, mademoiselle.
If you like it, I'll go on.
Please do. It's quite interesting.
I thought you'd find it so. Selfish people always like to hear about themselves.
Oh, I'm selfish too, am I?
When I first saw you in Paris, I thought you'd grown up and changed. And I swore to myself that I could stop being so concerned with myself and better myself, but over the past few weeks I can see I was wrong about you, and maybe about me as well, and I quite despise you for it.
Then, finally, there was Rome.
Good afternoon, Amy.
Lori, you surprised me. How is your grandfather today?
Quite well. I think Rome agrees with him. We even toured the Vatican Library this morning. You know grandfather and old books.
I'm glad he is well. I think the Italian climate agrees with Aunt March also. She has been in an unusually cheerful mood these past few days.
Still touring old churches?
Yes.
No shortage of old churches in Rome.
According to this book, the Cappuccini Chapel should be right down the street, but I don't see it.
Let me look.
Perhaps it is too hot anyway. Do you notice how quiet the streets are this time of day?
Siesta time. I can't make heads or tails of this map.
Siesta time? What a quaint idea. Though, I don't see folks back in New England taking to it.
Perhaps you were just a little bit homesick, Amy.
Perhaps I am. I was thinking about Beth again this morning, and how strange it will be to go home and she won't be there. And I thought to myself how wise she was. In her childlike way, she was so wise. And here I am traveling all over Europe without March and taking it all in. And yet, I don't feel as if I've grown at all.
Oh, but you have. I mean, you're not the same little Amy March I remember from back home.
I don't feel the same, but am I anything or anyone better than I was before? That's what I wonder.
I know you don't think much of me, Amy, and you've said so on certain occasions, but in my opinion, you are quite a remarkable person, and what you think of me means more than I thought anyone else could ever matter, and if you could just forgive me, and what I mean to say is, I can't read maps in Italian. Good day, Miss March.
Lori?
It was Meg who first told me of their engagement. Amy had written and asked her to break the news to poor dear Joe. I took it well, as they say, but more for Meg's sake than from any sense of good-natured behavior.
It is perfect. Amy loves fine things in elegant places, and Lori can provide them. I would have been a perpetual embarrassment to the dear boy. Amy will be a credit to him, and to herself.
I think our Amy has changed, Joe. In her letters, she seems much different, less flighty and self-absorbed. And her genuine concern for you and how you might react to her news, well, it was rather touching in its sincerity.
Perhaps Lori is responsible for the change in her. He could make the March girls do anything, except get me to marry him.
Joe, do you mind awfully?
Regrets? Not many.
We do worry about you, you know. Our Joe, always the boldest and the bravest of the bunch. But now you seem so fragile.
I'll be all right. There's no reason for anyone to make a fuss.
How is your writing going?
Pretty fair. Just sent a little novella to Professor Bear, and if he thinks it's as good as I feel it is, then I'll be overjoyed.
You and the professor write each other often?
I scribble off pages to him every time genius burns. And he, dear man that he is, responds to every letter with patience and care. But that is the sort he is, Meg, so kind and caring.
Your professor sounds like he's touched Joe's heart.
My heart? Yes. But he is a gentleman, Meg, and a scholar, too. He sees right through me and my silly stories, and he's not afraid to tell me so. So, you'd better give up any romantic notions you have about the two of us.
Oh, I will, as long as you promise you won't.
Meg, John has arrived with the twins. They're waiting out in the carriage.
Oh, I forgot all about our picnic. Goodbye, Joe. See you on Tuesday, Marmee, for dinner.
Give the children a kiss for me.
It's all right, Marmee. Meg told me the news, and I'm behaving myself, so it's safe to come in.
Oh, my dear, I hope you are not too cross with me. I wanted to tell you myself, but Meg said Amy insisted she break the news to you.
Amy knows I always try to act more mature in front of Meg.
Oh, Amy was frightfully worried about you. First she takes your place and goes to Europe with Aunt March, and then she and Lori and...
It was my own fault in the both cases. And everyone in the world seems to know that I refused Lori. Did they think I was just teasing him?
Oh, I knew you were sincere. But
Lately I've thought that if he came back and asked again, you might perhaps feel like giving another answer. Oh, forgive me, dear, for I see that you are lonely, and sometimes there is a hungry look in your eyes that goes to my heart. So I fancied that Lori might fill that place if he tried now.
No, Mother, it's better as it is. I'm glad Amy has learned to love Lori. But you're right, I am lonely. And maybe if he had tried again, I might have said yes. Not because I love him anymore, but because I care more to be loved than I did when he first asked.
Oh, I am glad of that, Joe, for it shows you are getting on, and perhaps someday...
Oh, bosh on someday.
Joe.
I know. Marmee, someday. Girls are supposed to be good and patient and be contented with someday. Well, I am responsible for myself. Not Amy, not Lori, not Aunt March. There you have it. Look at Jo. She's got it all put together for herself.
Of course I minded that Lori would marry Amy, and all the rationalizing in the world couldn't change that. But I knew I did not love him, and it was foolishness to pretend that I did. So I hid myself away in the attic and wrote and read the professor's letters again and wept. And in my fancy, I made those letters mean things that they didn't say.
Wait for me, my friend. I may be a little late, but I shall surely come to you.
If only he would. So good, so patient, so understanding of me always, my dear friend. I didn't value him half enough when I had him, but I should love to see him again. For it seems everyone is going away from me, and I am all alone.
I dare not kiss the ground over young Malcolm's feet.
Is this Theodore Lawrence I see before me, handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee, for I have thee not, yet I see thee still.
It's really me, Joe.
Lori.
You're happy to see me then?
Happy? Words can't express. Where's Amy?
Your mother has her down at Meg's. They're coming here, but I wanted to be the first to tell you that...
Lori, you've gone and got married.
I have.
Actually married.
Very much so, thank you.
Mercy on us. What dreadful thing will you do next?
A characteristic but not exactly complimentary congratulations.
What do you expect when you take one's breath away? You creep in here like a burglar when I'm half asleep and spring news like that on me. In fact, I'm not sure I'm not dreaming all this.
My apologies, Joe, but you know how I could never stand to keep a secret.
So sit and tell me all about it. How long have you been a married man?
6 weeks at the American consulate in Paris.
6 weeks, and look at you already. You've grown bigger and older and more distinguished.
Yes, I have. So you really ought to treat me with some more respect.
How can I, when the very idea of you being married and settled is so irresistibly funny that I can hardly keep from laughing?
You still see through me, Joe.
Always will. And I am so happy for you and Amy. I'll behave myself.
Are you, Joe? I mean, truly happy?
Did you think I'd throw rocks at you on your return?
Wouldn't exactly blame you if you did.
How you underestimate me, Mr. Lawrence.
I want to say something, Joe, and then we'll put it by forever. I shall never stop loving you, but that love has altered. I love Amy in the way I thought I loved you. I see now that I was stubborn and headstrong and wanted my best friend to also be my wife. But I've grown up, Joe, and I've learned to love Amy, and she's helped me learn about myself. And I truly feel that I can share my heart between Sister Joe and wife Amy and love them both dearly, if differently. Will you believe me and let us go back to happy old times when we first knew each other?
I believe you, Lori, with all my heart, but we can never be boy and girl again. Those happy times can't come back, and we mustn't expect it. We are man and woman now with work to do, and we must give up frolicking.
You seem so different, Joe.
As I say, you underestimate me. I shall miss the boy you once were. I admire the man that will be my sister's husband.
Thank you, Joe. They're here.
Then let's see that wife of yours.
Where is she? Where's my Joe?
Here I am, but your husband has gone and ruined your surprise.
Oh, Joe, I missed you so.
And look at you. The new Mrs. Lawrence is quite a lady. I wonder where silly little Amy has gone.
Oh, she's still here, Joe. Not even Lori could change me completely.
Come inside, everybody. Hannah has had tea ready for hours.
Hannah, welcome home, Mr. Lawrence. No doubt you'll be looking forward to some rest after chasing your grandson all over Europe.
I miss my library, that's for sure. And my friends. There is only one March girl in Europe, and she's Mrs. Lawrence now.
Ain't it a sight to see her sitting there fine as a fiddle, and hear folks calling our little Amy Mrs. Lawrence?
Hannah, 4 months without your popovers. It's a wonder I can stand it all.
Oh, now let me pour tea.
You should have heard the twins when they set eyes on Amy.
Pretty auntie, they kept saying. Very pretty auntie.
They've grown into the most darling little things. Joe, can you imagine we were ever that small?
Oh, now it looks like it's going to storm and all of my tablecloths are outside drying.
Amy, how did Aunt March handle the crossing?
Dreadfully. She just could not abide boats. She was sick all the time, and I kept saying to her, Auntie, let me stay with you in your cabin, but she wouldn't hear of it. You're a married woman now, she kept saying, and your place is with your husband.
Why, was Lori ill as well?
My aunt finally approved of something a member of this family has done. By marrying Lawrence, Amy, I fear you have endeared her to us forever.
Lori, will you get that? Hannah couldn't possibly...
Gladly.
Now, I, for one, want to hear all about the wedding. Amy, let's have your version of what happened.
I beg your pardon for the intrusion. Please, is this the March house?
It is.
But it seems I've come at a bad time. I wanted to speak with Miss Josephine.
You'd best come quick, Lori. They're telling the most amazing lies about you in there.
Excuse us. I'll get Joe.
Ah, you are Lori.
I am.
You have returned then.
From Europe. This very day, in fact.
I think maybe it would be best if I just left this with you then. I do not wish to disturb.
I'll get Joe. I'm sure she'd... Joe! You see... Where'd he go?
But you can't cross the Atlantic without 2 chaperones, she said, and my health will restrict me to my cabin. So Lori said, okay, then we'll get married in Paris before we sail. You should have seen her face.
Lori, what is it?
Very strange. This man at the front door, and he told me to give this to you, Joe.
For me? I don't understand.
I tried to get him to stay, but...
Frederick, excuse me.
Joe?
Where's she gone, Lori?
Christopher Columbus.
Professor? Professor Bear.
Miss Joe, you are getting all wet. Come under this umbrella.
But where are you going?
I did not mean to intrude. I see you are having a party.
But to come all this way, it's just family. Come back to the house. Amy and Lori have just returned from Europe.
I know.
And they're married. Can you believe such a thing? Here you show up. What is this?
Open it, please.
My book. It's published.
I was so impressed with it. I sent it to a friend of mine, and you see, he liked it too and published it. I would have told you right away, but I wanted to bring it to you myself and surprise you.
You certainly have done that.
So you are not so sad.
I'm thrilled.
No, I mean about your friend Lori getting married.
No. And I am more glad to see you than I can say. Come back inside. I want you to meet Marmee and Father and...
One moment first, Miss Joe. I must say some things to you. I've been silent for too long because I have feared your friend Lori and you. I mean to say, I would have spoken sooner. I would have come sooner, but...
You are here now. That's what's important.
Yes.
And you must stay for a while.
Joe, I am not a rich man. I'm just an old fellow with no fortune but a little learning. Yet I have long hoped that in your heart...
I think you have always known what was in my heart. Come, dear Frederick. Welcome home.
And so here ends the story of Jo March and how she got to be what she is. Not exactly the adventures of Odysseus, but for me, never anything less than exciting. Frederick and I married and opened a school for young boys. We had 23 years together, and each one was as precious as the last. Soon before he died, he said to me, "Thank you, my friend, for sharing your life. I think I will soon finally get to meet your dear Beth." And that is how I picture heaven. Frederick and Beth together, waiting for me. They both continue to teach me so much.